Um, Fishing, golfing, another fly high thing. But it didn't take Derek very long to figure out that golfing was just a little bit slow. Not quite his pace. Backpacking. Now, I waited for my son to get past the baby phase. I hated the baby phase. I figured, when they get to be about the age of 10, they're actually useful. And so this is Derek at about the age of 10, and that's not all his backpack. His backpack's in the front, my backpack's in the back. But his first backpack, he went from Trapper's Lake up on top of the Chinese wall, up on top of the flat tops at the age of 10. And we'd be going up there, and there'd be grown men turning around because they didn't want to walk that far. And we spent a week up there, and that was really our first backpack trip. Lacrosse was big to Derek. When the Mammoth came to town, they had this junior Mammoth team, and they gave these little kids these uniforms, and they went out and they played during halftime, and he was quite proud. But the Vancouver team was a lot bigger. That's Derek at a face-off, and he's going, man, that looks like one of the Mammoth players. You won't see many pictures of us skiing. Derek and I probably skied together hundreds of times. Not a few, not tens, not dozens, hundreds of times. And but we didn't slow down to take pictures. Okay, pictures. We didn't do two things. We didn't take pictures, and we didn't eat lunch. Go back one more, because you can see he's already got the love of music, and he's got his iPod all plugged into his. And I know how old he is, but he's already tuned me out and tuned in music. Just playing around here. This is the first hunt with Uncle Gary and Don and I, and Derek's down there in the middle of the gut pile, enjoying things and looking through all the pieces and parts. This is his first hunt, and that is a 300 Remington Ultra Mag that he shot at the age of 12 or 13. And he never even hesitated, pulled it, and you can see, those of you who are hunters, right through the heart. Pretty good shot. When we'd go hunting with Derek when he's a little guy, before he could even hunt, we would walk 10, maybe 15 miles a day, and we'd do it all through the snow. And he would go with us every step, never complained. Matter of fact, he loved it all. And we'd get back to where we were staying, and he's so tired, he'd eat. And he's supposed to do his homework, but he couldn't because he's too tired, so he'd fall asleep. So we came back from every elk hunt with no homework done. Lacrosse picture. Now Derek, he really liked his Panthers team, but he didn't like the fact some of the kids couldn't catch so well and couldn't throw so well. And he's a little frustrated, and he said, I wish I had a team to play on that was a little bit better. And so Mom, she found a team coached by Dan Murray back here, and playing with what became basically all of his teammates at Kent, called the Red Hawks. And then they rocked, and they didn't lose, and they were really good. And Derek really, really loved playing for them. And Catherine calls up, I think it was Dan himself, and said, my son we'd like to play on your team. And they had a little conversation, and she goes, he's pretty good too. And so Dan led him on the team, and they had a great time. Go back one more, because I think should be a Shore Kid in here. I think I saw their family come through, and I talked to them. So anyway, I'm going to point that out. Go ahead. More fishing, more hiking. Now, he's actually kissing it. He's not trying to eat it. as Derrik got older and as all of the kids got older, we went on lots of family adventures. This is through the Dordogne region of France. And Derrik's a whole maybe 10 years old. And the sisters had a hard time keeping up with him. And I told Derrik at a young age, I said, listen, my job in life is to help you know right from wrong. My job in life is to introduce you to the world. And then your job is to explore the world. Your job's to take it on from there. Always look through every door. Now this is an important photograph because Derrik was quite a naturalist. And he rode by this wall that's covered with moss. And he could not possibly go by this wall with moss on it without stopping, touching. He probably tasted it. And he did this his entire life. He touched, he tasted, he felt. He wanted to experience this moss. And we'd be going on a hike, and he'd be doing the same thing when he's 16 and 18 years old. And here he is. This is the first time I can remember in a picture seeing him stopping and saying, you know, we need to just stop and appreciate what's right here and enjoy what's right here. He taught me a phenomenal lesson when he was 18 and 19 years old. He was really big into the power of now, right? Which I kind of said, well, that sounds like a bunch of crap. And he said, Dad, you got to read it. So I read the book. And then I listened more to Derrik. He said, you know, your mind's always someplace else. You're always thinking about something else. You need to stop thinking and you need to experience what's right here. And it took me probably a year to get to the point where I started doing that. I'd be going through the forest, thinking about everything else, and it'd be a forest, I didn't see it. And then I think of Derrik. This is before he died. I'd be thinking of Derrik, and I'd say, Derrik would want me to stop. Look at that tree. Look at this person in front of me. And be right here, right now. Don't be someplace else. And so he taught me a lot. So what happens when a little kid is beating his sisters all morning long? Then he needs a nap. Then we went into the Alps, Chamonix, Mount Blanc, and Derrik and a telefreak, and we explored the Alps a little bit. Then we made several family trips down to Mexico and explored Tulum and some of the other ruins down there. Sometimes with the Debuses, by the way. Derrik in the jungle. Looking through the tide pools. Then it got to be the age where you go, okay, I can start buying my son guns. That's a good age. You know, that's probably 14, 15 years old. And here's his first gun. And you can see he's pretty psyched up. Kent. First day at Kent. See how the happiness on his face? When we told him he had a couple of options where to go to school, it was either CA or Kent. He kind of looked like, what did I do wrong? And his sisters were very successful academically. They went through the IB program at Littleton, and we knew that that would be an abject failure for Derrik. That he needed small classrooms, really good teachers, and then he would be okay. And before we did that, Catherine and I sat down with Derrik, and we said, we're going to send you to this school, but with that comes a tremendous obligation. It will cost more to send you to school in a year than families have to spend on their whole family in a year. And that obligation means that you do something with this. It means you take what we give you and you turn it into something good. And that was a pretty heavy load on a 7th grader. But he did it. He did it well. But it was really hard because he really didn't like going there. He was just, he was a blue-collar kid. There was nothing pretentious about it. And he just loved the normal person. Another fishing trip. Now, you'll see a new person in this picture, second from the right, that's Michael. When Michael became Megan's boyfriend and now husband, Derrik finally had a brother. And Michael meant a lot to Derrik. It was a guy you could talk to, someone who actually knew music, as opposed to myself, who have no knowledge of music. Was cool, could hang with. That was really important to Derrik, and they had a great bond, and Michael was a great member of our family. And I told him, bad news is now you're my only son, and could be bad news. Next. You know, these pictures provide avenues for me to tell you so many important things about Derrik. When he went to Kent, they didn't wrestle. Wrestling's not something you do at Kent. Now, they used to in the old days, but they didn't have enough kids where they wanted to do it anymore. Derrik wanted to wrestle. And I said, okay, well, we'll call up a couple places and see if you can wrestle. So he calls up, not me, he calls up Coach Behrens, because he's part of the Heritage Youth Wrestling Program. Call up Coach Behrens. Coach Behrens, my name's Derrik. You know me. I'd like to come wrestle for Heritage High School. And Coach Behrens goes, well, what school do you go to? I go to Kent. And you want to come to Heritage and you want to wrestle over here? Yeah, Coach, that's what I want to do. So Heritage gets out of school before Kent. So their practice starts before Kent's out. And so Catherine would pick up Derrik, run him over to Heritage as quick as they could. He'd join into the practice. And he wrestled for Heritage for 2 or 3 years until basically it was, the time gap was just so great that he basically couldn't make but half of a practice. It's hard to be a varsity wrestler with half of a practice each day. But Derrik would show up and those kids would go, well, who are you? You know? Oh, hey, that's that kid from Kent. Yeah, I bet we can whoop his butt any day. And Derrik always did very well, and this is one of his tournament championships. Little trim job. Derrik, every day coming home, Derrik is a huge dog fan. He loves any and all dogs, and he's just loved his dog so much. His cousin Kevin, right over here, tell you riding bikes. Kilimanjaro, Pro talked about this. This is Derrik's first big adventure, age of 13. We had his 14th birthday party on the slopes of Mount Meru, and he was just such a champ. We had just a tremendous time together, although he really kind of freaked out at the 49 porters. He couldn't quite figure out why you needed that many people to haul your own crap. Why don't you haul your own stuff up the mountain? And he really didn't like that. He didn't like people serving him, bringing him water, carrying his stuff. He goes, what's up with that? Like, why are they carrying our stuff? Why aren't we carrying our stuff? And it took, we talked the entire time. I said, Derrik, here's the way you need to think about it. Without us having them as porters, they don't have a job. And finally, he bought that one. This is on the, that is the rim of the Ngorongoro crater. That's Kilimanjaro in the background.